Chapter 2, The Economy. Number 1, remember those juicy red berries that are made into sauce for Thanksgiving dinner? Well, they might have come from Massachusetts. It is number 1 in growing cranberries. Maine is number 1 in lobsters. They just love the cold ocean water there. The first pretzel bakery in the United States opened in Lititz, Pennsylvania in 1861. The first boardwalk in the world was built in 1870 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The biggest underground marble quarry in the world is in Vermont. Ships, freight, and waterways. We'll begin our tour of economic activities in the Northeast on its waterways. Remember, the economy is the way a region uses its natural resources, goods, and services. Have you ever been on a freighter? A freighter is a big ship that carries products like iron or wheat, cars or apples. Climb up the gangplank because we are about to travel on the St. Lawrence Seaway. The St. Lawrence Seaway links the Atlantic Ocean and the Great Lakes. The Seaway is made up of the St. Lawrence River, several lakes, and canals along the way. We are nearing the end of Lake Erie. Ahead is Niagara Falls. What now? We are about to enter the Welland Canal. A canal is a waterway dug across land. This land connects Lake Ontario with Lake Erie. It has 8 locks that will lower or raise a ship hundreds of feet. A lock is like a giant elevator for ships. A ship enters a lock, then the gates of the lock close. Water is pumped in or out. The ship slowly drops or is lifted up. Almost 2,000 ships travel up and down on these locks every year. These ships carry about 50 million tons of freight like wheat, corn, iron, and coal. They also carry manufactured goods such as stoves, refrigerators, trucks, and cars. Look at the map on page 15. You will see just how many different things are manufactured in this region. Timber! Did you ever hear someone yell out, "Timber"? That's what you hear just before a big tree comes crashing to the ground. We're in the big forests of Maine now. This is logging country. Over 5,000 products are made from trees. Pencils, furniture, and of course paper are made of wood. But did you know that some clothing and carpets are made from trees too? Paint, glue, and even chewing gum have ingredients from trees. Cranberry sauce. When you think of big business, you probably don't think of wetlands loaded with cranberries. Cranberries are a $100 million business here in Massachusetts. Look at the picture on page 12. See all those plump red berries floating in the water? Long ago, cranberries grew wild in natural bogs. Today, cranberries grow in special fields flooded with water. Fish, sticks, and shellfish. Do you ever eat fish sticks? Do you know where most of the fish we eat comes from? Some comes from lakes, like the Great Lakes, but most come from the ocean. Let's visit the Ocean State. That's Rhode Island. It's called that because not one person in the whole state lives more than 25 miles from the ocean. We're going to the port of Narragansett. A port is where ships and boats can load and unload cargo. In this port, you'll see many fishing boats. They must be unloading 1,000 pounds of lobster and about 8,500 pounds of crab. That's a lot of seafood salad. If you like eating shellfish, then travel south to Chesapeake Bay. Native Americans living along this bay gave it an Algonquin name, Chesapeake. The name means Great Shellfish Bay, and there's plenty of crabs, oysters, and clams in these waters. Chemicals and cows. What do chemicals and cows have in common? Well, they are both important in New Jersey. Many companies here make chemicals. It's hard to believe that such a small, heavily populated state has any room for cows, but 15,000 of them eat grass and make milk here. Each cow weighs 1,000 pounds or more. Do you know how much they eat to grow so big? Each cow can eat 20 pounds of grain, 50 pounds of greens, such as grass, and 30 pounds of hay a day. Wow, that's 100 pounds of food. In return for all that food, the farmer gets about 16 quarts of milk from each cow every day. Megalopolis. Have you ever heard the term megalopolis? It is a word used to refer to a large urban or city-like area. The megalopolis in the Northeast extends about 600 miles and is made up of several cities which seem to grow together. It's hard to tell where one city ends and the neighboring one begins. The megalopolis includes Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and hundreds of smaller cities in between. The biggest single city in the Northeast megalopolis is New York City. The city sure is crowded. Over 7 million people live here. But that's nothing. Millions more people come here to visit or work every day. One of New York's most famous buildings is the Empire State Building. Up here on the observation deck, you can see all of Manhattan and beyond. At the southern tip of Manhattan is Wall Street. There you find large banks and stock exchanges. Wall Street is the financial capital of the world. Long ago, New York City was a Dutch village called New Amsterdam. Its people built a wall around it to keep out wild animals and other enemies. Today, a narrow street remains that everyone calls Wall Street. A capital city. We are now in the District of Columbia. That's what the DC stands for in Washington, D.C. The city is the capital of the United States. The President of the United States works and lives here. About 250,000 government employees work here too. We'll visit the Capitol, where members of Congress pass laws. After your tour of the Capitol, you can walk over to the Supreme Court building. Here, the 9 judges of the Supreme Court decide if the laws are fair. Thousands of men and women work for television, radio, and newspapers in Washington, D.C. Their job is to let people in the United States and around the world know what the U.S. government is doing. In Washington, you'll also see many tourists. About 5 million tourists like us come to visit our nation's capital every year. Tourists eat in restaurants, stay in hotels, and buy souvenirs. The tourist industry is important to the economy of Washington, D.C. Tourists visit the Northeast to see the region's many cultural attractions. So let's find out about the culture of this region. Let's find out about the way of life, the history, and the special celebrations of the Northeast.